Bosh, okay, we are live with another Battleline Network podcast. Look at that. This is the how many have we done now? Like EU ones. Is this the fourth, third, fourth? One
I
of
think it's
those num.
third. Not sure.
I don't. It's one of those numbers, and I'm pretty much keeping the BLN channel running these days. Eagles so busy, so busy. But in today's podcast, we have a chunky little lineup. There's 6 of us in here. I know. What's I'm gonna go on another tangent thinking about another little metaphor. But you know what? I'll keep going. But we'll start off with a little introduction for everyone present. So going from top to bottom, the HRE way, we have Parker.
The HOE way, I love that. My name's Parker. I lead the 6th New York Cavalry in game, and I play mostly on European side, but dabble in any events here and there as well. So
And next we have Henkel.
Hello, my name is Hinkle. I am the Supreme Commander of the New York Volunteers, general members' birthdays and movie nights, and on my spare time, I like to annoy Parker.
true,
And that is why you're here today.
and that is why.
Next we have Star.
Hey everybody, commanding officer of the Fighting 5th Virginia. Spend most of my time on the NA side of things.
And up next we have S Coins.
Scoins, thanks, jerk. I'm one of the officers of the 59th New York, also part of the bigger group of Sussy Brigade. So that's about it, and I play a lot of different events, EU included.
Thank you, S Coins, for that. Next we have Gene. Gene or John?
It's whatever you like.
Fine,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, just call me John from HL.
We have John from HL. All right. So in today's little podcast, we're going to be talking about the role of communicate. Almost forgot there. The role of communication in War of Rights, because obviously War of Rights is a team-based game, so you have to rely on communication and your friendlies to win the actual game. Because if you don't, it's a you can swear on this channel, actually. It's a shit show. So so it's a big topic because there's a lot of different aspects that go into communication, and especially if you're on like a Steam chat with Sevi, it can really go downhill fast.
Ooh.
I love you, Sevi. I'm sorry. You'll message me after this.
That's blasphemy. How dare you?
Yeah, one of his privates will be like, Sevi, they talked about you on the podcast. It's like when I went for that whole podcast, I talked about Lucian for like the whole time. But anyway, moving on swiftly. See, look, I told you little tangents. First of all, I want to gauge with the room, okay, which form of communication out of the 2 main ones, obviously being, well, in-game has its own little forms, because obviously you have messengers, and then you also have like, there's different aspects to in-game, but we'll just stick with in-game or Steam chat first of all. Which form of communication do you guys prefer more? Starting from, we'll go from bottom to top this time. So John.
All right. I mean, if you're doing the more historical thing of having messengers, it would probably only work for certain events, I could imagine. Because I feel like the moment one side has messengers and the other side communicates in Steam chat, the guys who are in Steam chat will win every single time. Because messengers just, there's a delay there. And I mean, the other side of Steam chat is that you can sometimes have people who are a little bit too competitive, and it might get a little bit toxic. But I'd probably prefer Steam chat if I'd have to pick one.
I'm definitely one of those toxic people in Steam chat. That's the problem with Steam chat is, in game, I can't really call someone out, but in Steam chat, oh, they get it.
Mm.
They get it so
Yeah.
easy. But yeah, okay, nice one. So I got one for Steam chat. S Coins.
To be honest with you, I prefer Steam chat. I do like the events with no comms, but again, you get that rare one group who goes out and does their own thing, and they don't pay attention, they don't listen. That can happen in any event, but I prefer Steam Chat when there's not a bunch of idiots in it. You know what I mean? Um, I do like every now and then the no communications ones, but that's only if I'm in a group of people I trust and I don't have to deal with the 10th US.
God damn it.
Wow.
Jeez.
Shots fired.
Literally.
59ny.
How many minutes in are we?
5 minutes in.
Nice. All right. Good job, Scoins.
The Scoins is here to make enemies and give Red something to do.
Oh, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Carry on, Scoins.
Yeah. Star.
Alright, so I think Steam and in-game chats are both great in their own ways. It really just kind of depends on the event that you're playing in. Because, of course, the 5th VA plays in events where you use the standard Steam, and then, of course, other events where it's all in-game, and it just depends heavily on the situation. I mean, if you're in a standard event, and depending on who's in there and what your team is doing, having the Steam chat is just going to make everything run very smoothly. But then other folks can get in and things can break down or people can not be responding and it just gets into a bit of a shit show. But more often than not, I would definitely prefer Steam if I'm trying to have a nice competitive match.
That makes sense. I mean, we may as well just end the podcast now at this point. He's explained everything.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yep, there we go.
Henkel?
Well, if you're asking for my preference, I agree with Star. I think it really depends on the event you're playing. I've only played maybe one event where I had to use Steam Chat, and it was a nightmare for me personally. But if my preference, I definitely just prefer in-game. Yeah, and I guess we'll discuss that.
Was it an NA or an EU event? Just out of curiosity.
I played HDC the one time back when we were 4th PA. So I had my guys in Discord and then talking game, and then I would have Togray like in my ear. So yeah, there was like 3 different ways of communication all happening at one time, and it's like I can't even like hear the game. But I think it definitely has its benefits, but it's definitely not my go-to.
Yeah, I mean that Steam Chat is definitely like that. Parker?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same wavelength as Henkel. I've had a few events where I've used Steam Chat, and I've never really enjoyed them too much because unless it's like a really kind of everybody's on the same page and it's kind of quite a disciplined like chat, then it can be very easy that it kind of gets out of hand, and people start getting very animated and screaming and stuff. And sometimes there's just a few too many cooks in those Steam chats, you know? Like sometimes you only really need maybe, I don't know, the company commander in game of each company and you can work it out. So for me personally, I mean, most of the events, if not all the events we play, use in-game communications. I'd say I prefer that way, but I can definitely see the merits of Steam Chat for certain events, such as the Grand Campaign. I think it makes sense because there's a lot on the line, and naturally, you know, the result of that game is more than just the result of the battle, so to speak, you know. So if you can't, as like the token holder, for example, if you can't communicate with those other units that are maybe going off and putting you in jeopardy, then yeah, you have, I think, quite a good right to be annoyed at that. I mean, the events that we play, I guess, are a little bit more. They're not what's the word? Like the next week isn't so much affected by that week, so it's more just a case of turn up, see who wins, and we'll see what happens in game. In you know UEC, HRE, those sort of events, and also the NA events too. So yeah, I prefer just using in-game comms, to be honest.
Would you agree, right? Let's say a normal community event, like say Sunday NA, which is probably one of the bigger events in the week, in terms of numbers wise, or like any just normal community event where there's not really any rules, it's just kind of basic war of rights, skirmish, whatever. Would you say in-game comms would be able to function well in that sort of scenario, or do you think it's mainly for the, I don't like saying slower paced because they're not exactly slower paced, but the more like historically accurate kind of historical ruled events like UEC or HRE?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the kind of the event intention, doesn't it? Like, I think if it's just as you say, like a Sunday event where there's not an awful lot of rules, then I don't think anyone's kind of compelled to only talk just with proximity chat, because you're there to purely win. And I think it's kind of you go to those events to try and win. There's not really like a lot else riding on it, right? You either win or you lose. There's not like a bigger thing, even in a sense for the European events where you're right, they are a little bit slower, but even in a sense where they're a bit slower and there's kind of more to it, I think it's a little bit less winning and losing. So yeah, I think Steam Chat does make more sense for those events. But yeah, it's a preference thing. There's definitely merits to both sides of it. So
one of the people that likes Steam Chat, well, the S-Coins, on average, say, I mean, in my opinion, in my experience, NA Steam Chats are way more hectic than EU ones, solely based on the fact that most of the time there's going to be like 10 people, sometimes even more, in the Steam Chat, whereas like in game you're pretty much dealing with one guy from every regiment, which can sometimes be like 4 or 6 or whatever. So would you say that, like, because you've done EU Steam Chats before, haven't you, Scoins, or have you just done NA
Yes,
ones?
I've done it. I've done them all.
Would you say on average the EU ones are a lot less hectic than the NA ones, like say Grand Campaign one, for example?
I will say it's less hectic because you have less, and it's not a knock against EU, but you don't have all the different regiments going into that at the time. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have so many people in the Steam Chat. Let's look at Friday night. How many small groups come out for NA Steam Chat?
Yeah.
It's brutal. It is brutal. You can have 7 to 10 guys in there, and there's just no, someone wants to take charge, and you got 7 to 8 other people listening, and quite frankly, they've got their own groups to run, but these guys can drive you nuts sometimes, and that kind of Steam Chat gives me a headache, and I absolutely hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're part of a bigger group and you're more organized and you have more people to bring in, and it's you don't need that many people in Steam Chat. It's only like 3. Then it's more focused. 3 to 4, it's more focused, and it's a better outcome. And you don't leave with that headache. When it's a Friday night, I want to be done with those nights. That's why I'm sort of glad that I'm not on Friday nights anymore. Mike is on Friday night for us, so he gets to deal with all that, because it's a shit show on Friday nights in the Steam Chat and for Steam. But other nights, I find it's pretty well tamed, and I'm sure on Wednesday night with Red dealing it with the Battle Line Network, it's a lot smoother for them.
Yeah, I mean, see, Friday NAs is all like young officer night for our NA side, at least, and even though there's somebody else leading, which I know I'm always a big stickler for this, like, if you got someone else leading, why aren't they in the Steam Chat? And I say that quite a bit, but at the same time, on like a Friday, I always go in the Steam Chat, because especially if it's someone's first time leading or something, having like Discord comms and game comms and Steam Chat comms can be like
Chaotic.
it's very chaotic, and it can be pretty overwhelming, which is one of the like things, like say on a Sunday EU, it's a lot more like kind of focus on yourself and play off what your teammates are doing, instead of, and then not having that background like constant chatter in the Steam Chat, because it can be a pain, which is why I like HRE, because there's not constant direct communication, which obviously in some instances can be a problem, like this Sunday that we just had.
Don't know what you're talking about, Kenneth.
But other times it's like, it's fairly chill, and it's just like, you've been given your plan and what you need to do in the strat, so just go do it. And
yeah, I think the thing with the Steam Chats is, with HRE even, is it works well when everybody's on the same page, but it's kind of quite hard to sometimes have everybody on that same page when you're making like a plan in strat sketch, and then as soon as you go onto the field, unless you physically find another unit, or if your messenger happens to make it halfway across the world to them, and they make it to them without dying, then it kind of works okay. But there's a lot of moments where when that breaks down, a lot more breaks down than just the communications. The kind of overall plan can go to shit pretty quick, right? And yeah, that's what we saw on Sunday, I think, when people just they just kind of get lost in the plans, and that Steam Chat would be the saving grace, I imagine, wouldn't it? You could have easily said, everybody back to main spawn. Let's hold here and chill out. But we had no way of doing that until I attempted to run around and go red in the face. So it was quite an event
Yeah.
Sunday. But you know, for the most part, it works okay.
I mean, I don't do messengers really. I do myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try to do the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like sending messengers. I'd rather just, if I've got my guys sat there shooting at something, I'll just run over and go talk to somebody and organize something, because it's way easier than just, sending someone to constantly have to give them a message and then that guy come back with a response and then you send them back out to do another message.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
way easy. That's why Steam Chat's good, is because it's so direct. You just got direct comms with every line on your side of the field, I'm gonna say. Whereas that's the only there's a lot more breakdowns in non-Steam Chat events. Because I mean, we do
Yeah.
one NA non-Steam Chat event, which is Maryland campaign, which that it's a sticky one, because in all fairness, it's not as organized as HRE in terms of messengers and shit. It's literally just kind of, as soon as the event goes live, it's just kind of everyone for themselves, really. So if someone wants to go cap point, they just go cap point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of just go off and do your thing, win the game. There's no real behind the scenes strat for it, which when it doesn't go our way is pretty much down to the reason for it. Star,
Yes,
do you do any events where there's no Steam Chat, or is it?
I do. I'm in the Maryland campaign.
Oh, you do Maryland campaign. Crap, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah. Something to be said about the Maryland campaign, actually, is the Maryland campaign is the night I have set aside out of the 3 events my boys do a week. That is my young officer night. So the other 2 events are Steam Chat events, where I'm in there and we're coordinating and all that other crazy shit. But then Saturdays, I let my young guys, my NCOs, my younger officers, I let them take control, and they don't have to deal with that. And instead, they have to work with the units next to them. And my biggest piece of advice for my young officers on those nights is not so much to worry about the communication. Of course, communicate, obviously, but don't put all your focus into that. Just watch. Look across the field, look at the units next to you, see what they're doing, and play off of that. And I think not having to be in the Steam Chat for the younger guys, because somebody said that earlier, it can be a lot. It can be hectic, it can be crazy. So having those boys not having to deal with that, and just being able to work and hone their skills leading without that extra step, I think it's good stuff for the boys. And I've led in it too, and I quite like events where I don't have to do Steam, but if I'm looking for something to be firing on all cylinders and everyone's coordinated and everyone's working together properly, Steam's the way to go. But there is something to be said for the non-Steam Chat events. I really do like them.
Would
I think what you said just. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, did you say that was Maryland campaign? Sorry, there's no Steam Chat stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think that was a really good thing you said in there. You said about essentially just watch and react to people, right? I think that's something which in the UEC and sometimes HRE, that's something which a lot of units maybe struggle with more. They struggle with seeing what happens in front of them and reacting to it, because they have an overall plan in their head of what they want to do. But the moment that plan changes, if they aren't able to react on the fly, then I guess they get a bit bogged down. So I think
Right.
what you said there about just look and watch, and if you see something happening, think, what can I do about it? I think that's the thing which, without the Steam Chat, that's a big change in the event, how it goes. Because then, like UEC and HRE, for example, if you see a unit engaging someone, the best thing you can do is chuck yourself in as well. I can't count the number of times that AMV comes across to Union, and if I see Killer go in for something, I'm going in too, because I know they've got a good chunk of people. But even if they narrowly lose or narrowly win that engagement, if I bring another 20 in, then all of a sudden you've won. You don't necessarily need to coordinate that. As long as you keep your head up and your eyes open, then you can do maybe things that you weren't expected to do in that sense.
That's exactly it. And on those Saturdays where I'm not leading the line, but I'm still there in support, I tend to just fall in the line as a private. We have a special chat set aside for our leaders, our officer corps, where the young guys will come in there when they're not normally in there, and they'll get to talk to the rest of us high command, and we'll be able to say things like, all right, these guys are moving up to do this, you should probably help them, and then they'll do it. and they'll be able to work off of that. And next time that happens, we won't have to tell them because they'll see it happen. They'll see the
Yeah.
guys going in for a push, or they'll see people moving towards point, and they'll follow the flow of the battle as opposed to just kind of sticking there, not doing much. And
Yeah.
I think it can help as far as the longevity of their leadership war rights career. They'll be able to look at things and see what's happening without necessarily being like needing to be told what to do. And
Yeah.
I think starting out somewhere where all the solutions aren't spoon fed to you, it
Yeah.
can do a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
War
I like
right
that.
career. That's just sad.
I think it's funny
It's
how
the
in
video
the
game.
I know.
Would
yeah.
because I mean even say like at HRE, because one of my captains, Lyferic, he's so enthusiastic and he just always wants to do something like really special. Okay, when sometimes he just needs to go basic, which is I tell him this all the time. But if he ever wants to lead a HRE, I still end up just becoming the messenger because it's just way easier for it all coming from one person all of the time. I feel like it's obviously, I mean, for most events we don't need messengers, so I don't really need to be training guys to be messengers in a sense. So it's not something that I'm like, oh no, I need to train you up to be a good messenger, because I mean I know the maps, so I know where not to go and where to go when I'm running to lines and stuff like that. So it's not that I don't have confidence in them, I just have more confidence in myself. But in general, so I know you said, Parker, it's more about the event, but would you say it's more about the map? Do you think the maps are way more prone to being like pro Steam Chat? Because I mean in-game is in-game no matter what map you're on, but would you say certain maps it would definitely be, in-game comms alone isn't really enough, whereas Steam Chat would make it 10 times easier instead of it being just event based? Because I feel like HRE would work fine even if it had a Steam Chat. Obviously it will be slightly different and a bit more faster paced, but would you say it's more of like a map thing, like on Sunday how we did Auto Shark Farm? I mean, it's a weird map, but the problem with that one is the only two ways to attack are on the far left or the far right, so
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's not a case of we think it's better to not have Steam. It's a case of we kind of value not having it for like I guess you could call it either the immersion aspect or the character of the event, right? Because I think if you talk about it from a purely is it easier to communicate with an external device or not, then the answer is obviously, well, yes, because proximity chat's pretty limited, right? So I think it's definitely easier with Steam. It's just a case of how you use it, which is what makes it technically less or more useful, I suppose. So I'd say with the maps themselves, as soon as you get to Conquest and Contention, absolutely. If you think about the size of these maps, and when you're going for these A, B, and C points, you think about in HRE, for example, when we divide up plans and say, I don't know, this units go for. Normally in Conquest, you have kind of safe points, i.e., the point nearest to your spawn, and then you have the what's the word, like contentious point in the middle. Then you have like their spawn one, right? If you think about the amount of times where, not even just in HRE, actually, in other events too, like you have a unit go for the quote unquote safe point, and out of nowhere they get absolutely ranched into the fucking wall, and it's like you have no idea it happens because there's no communication, right? Like that's happened to us a few times in UEC recently and things like that, and we don't know about it until we see firstly the flag die, and then you just see that little flag creeping up the pole if you see it from far enough away or whatever. So it's definitely a case of, I think Steam is, as I say, it's definitely on the premise of it, it's definitely better for most maps. It's just how it's used, which I think is what makes it, as I say, either more or less useful. And that's, I guess, a lot down to the event style and the participants in it, if they're all on the same page. And I think it was, I can't remember, I think it might have been Scorings or Stars that said, if you have too many people in there, then it just becomes an absolute fest. So...
Yeah. So about that, so in Steam Chat, which I mean, I guess the ones that have used it more will have a better understanding on this. Would you say it's better if you have, say, your line leader, whoever's leading your line, and maybe the XO in Steam Chat, or is it easier just to have one guy from every group in there instead of it being? Because on sometimes you'll have multiple people in there. Some people who aren't directly leading a line but are still handing out suggestions and trying to coordinate. Whereas, in my opinion, it infuriates me actually. It actually hurts my brain all the time. I get so annoyed when there's like so many people in Steam chat, and that's why I don't join it until about 5 minutes after the actual event's meant to be started.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to be reminded. I'm like, oh crap! Oh, you hear that Steam chat thing? Hold on.
I
Oh,
would
no.
rather they leave them in your channel. I mean, leave them in your own Discord chat. You know, there doesn't need to be that many people in there. Quite frankly, the only ones who need to be in the Steam chat are the ones leading the map. Maybe
Yeah.
the second, but that's about it. If you're gonna have your second in there, you know, your second should be muted, shut up, and just, you know, basically there to listen for when the main guy goes down to hear about suggestions when things, so he can relay what's going on. But
I
that's
agree.
about it. That's about all
Yep.
you need.
Yep.
Other than that, you don't need it, because you don't need all these different suggestions. If you can't figure it out with your 5 to 6 main guys who are in there, you're not getting it done anyways. So you don't need the other person from your group to make it 12 people in there trying to figure it out. It's like a conference gone wrong, and then that's where you start getting the shouting and all that. It's like,
Yeah.
look at event cord. When someone brings in like 6 guys, 7
Yeah.
guys from one side, do you need that many freaking people to come in to event coordination? Give me a fucking break. You don't need that many people. I want to feel like I'm a part of the experience. Maybe if you're in training, that's fine. All right. If you're learning how to do it, I can understand that. But if you're not, you don't need to be there. You know who's in charge of your group. You know who's going to do the speaking. Keep it easy. And then we don't have to go to 7:45, 7:50, just, you know, organizing the event.
I
I think
like
as
it. Oh, go on, Gene.
oh, sorry, Killer.
No,
I
no,
was gonna
go.
say, I think as long as you have like strict discipline of comms, like, you know, tell your sergeant to shut up when they're in there, it should be fine. But it also looks weird. It looks wrong to have like 7 people from one regiment in VC. It just looks weird.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like you
Yeah.
can't figure it out with the one guy, 2 guys you sent. You had to get 5 other guys to make sure you wrote
The
it down
only
right.
the only thing I could say is what benefits having multiple people in Steam chat is people. So in HL we have Discord, TeamSpeak, and Steam chat. It benefits to have people that are in TeamSpeak also be in Steam chat, because then they know when to shut up, because people are talking in Steam chat. You don't have people talking over each other. That's the only thing.
I just rudely tell them to shut up. It's
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean it's weird because we don't really use TeamSpeak anymore. We only just use Discord and Steam
Yeah.
chat and obviously in game. But when it comes to like people talking in Discord and Steam chat, for some reason, it's just like it's not even like one of them's louder than the other. It's just you can't hear what anyone is actually saying at that moment in time. So it's yeah. I mean, the majority of the time, everyone just like doesn't even talk on my Discord. It's so beautiful sometimes. Sometimes they're a bit rowdy, but a lot of the time it's clean. Sometimes. Apart
There's
from-
something to be said for that. As far as regiments who do use Steam chat, you can't have your dudes just fucking going crazy in Discord if you're in Steam. Otherwise, it just, as a leader, you lose your mind.
Yeah, that's why you have PTS.
Yeah,
I have to-
absolutely.
Like not. I mean, sometimes like some of my guys they just don't understand when I tell them. You know, it's just so gay. It's so I don't even think of the word. Wild.
Did you just say it's so gay?
No.
Why put yourself through that? I mean, like,
Well, no,
I would
because it's
go
more,
insane.
Yeah, but at the same time, it can sometimes create a way more competitive event if both sides are in Steam. They're constantly coordinating. Every second of the map is pretty much covered. If anything happens out of the blue, like everything, or you know, in War Rights, something will hit you like it's nothing, and yet you had no idea it was coming. And then all you need to do is, you know, say it in Steam chat, and then 10 seconds later you've got a regiment who was in the middle who wouldn't have even been able to see it just run over and help you. And it can create more competitive matches, in my opinion. The thing with, like, say, the non-com Steam chats, really, the non-com Steam, what? the non-communication, the Steam chat events. There we go.
The
I call them.
clusterfuck ones.
No, I mean sometimes they can be a cluster. Like say HRE on Sunday, that was a bit of a cluster, but normally they're just they're a lot more relaxed in a sense, where it's just like it's like a day off for me. Honestly, it's just I just get to go and do my thing and focus on the regiments around me, friendly and enemy, and I don't really know or have to worry about what's going on the other side of the map, because quite frankly it's got nothing to do with me because I'm not over there. Whereas in Steam chat it's kind of like, if I'm fighting on the left side of the map, I don't really want to be hearing about what's constantly going on the right side of the map, which does happen a lot, and it kind of blocks out comms and can confuse things. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
say
but
it
also
confuses
it holds
things.
us accountable. It holds you, because I know when you're in Steam chat, you as well, we hold each other accountable. Like if someone messes up, you've never been afraid to call someone out on it.
Oh, I
And
do that all the time.
you're right, exactly. It holds us accountable. And that's the one part I like about it, because when you go into the things like the Maryland campaign and stuff like that, yeah, we all go into this whole planning session and you sit there forever and you go through it. You've got your plan coming out and stuff like that. But when you go in and a group just totally disregards a plan, like, you're saying, well, we're playing the field, and they don't stick with the general gist of what they said they were going to, then it's like you just want to, what's the point at that point? What's the point? I guess you can communicate them to everyone. Communicates in the chat that goes on the side, and everyone's yelling at each other, and that's just a mess too. And then you got to tell your guys just to ignore it. But when groups ignore the whole overall plan and stuff like that, that's when you want the Steam chat, so you can say, hey, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be in this plan. You're supposed to be accountable for the actions and plan that was given to you, and you're not doing it. This is absolute shit.
No, and on the same side of that coin, for example, if we're defending on dunkers and you plant yourself on the left side, and the entire enemy team goes right, in a Steam chat event, you'll be able to hear, "Hey, everybody's going right. Get over here," But on a non-Steam chat event, you can just, if you're completely fucking ignorant, you can't hear the fight going on the other side. You just sit there like, nobody's over here. I don't know what's going on.
I feel like
That's-
that's definitely an issue with the non-Steam chat events when it comes to some regiments that for some reason are just so delusional. I hate to say it, but there really are some regiments that are so delusional. Like say I can't remember what it was, whether it was HRE or Maryland campaign. It was one of those
Probably HRE.
non-Steam chat events where God, that one caught me off guard. And we were doing Dunker Church, and I was holding the far left side, and the Union went far right side. But I'm not an idiot, and so I wasn't even with my line. I was just stood near the church with my binoculars, and when I saw them shifting right from their spawn, I ran down to my line, and then I shifted them right. It's just like some regiments, even when they hear
Wait.
gunfire.
Are you referring to HRE literally from 2 weeks ago? Because we did Dunker and
Might
we
have been that.
we pushed whole Union hard left,
Yeah.
knowing that you're going to split in two.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
ran
'cause
at the
I
8th
was-
Georgia with the whole Union force.
I was that. I don't know if you remember much of it, but I was that regiment. So do you know how there's that little picket fence that kind of cuts into the field like about 20 yards and then just breaks off on the CSA right, Union left?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was that regiment that ran up to there, and we chilled there, and then we pretty much started playing around the center hill with 6 Alabama. Which
See, I think it's kind of cool though, because like I know it's annoying, like as you guys say, from not having the people on that side, but that's kind of part of the fun of some of these events. You don't know where people are, you don't know how your friendlies are doing, and like in the case of Dunker for the Union, that was a good thing there. And then the next round we did Cook's countercharge, which we ended up winning, but towards the end, we literally lined up around the point, knowing they're going to be pushing from somewhere, and all of a sudden there's literally a swarm of CSA come over the hill. Like I don't even know how many, probably about 120 at once, and it's like we didn't know where they were coming from. They just appeared with bayonets down and freaking screaming at us.
Yeah, but the problem with that one was, okay, and I didn't even go to debrief after that. I just sent Victor a message and was just like, yo, I'm just not going to debrief because I have nothing nice to say.
Fair enough.
That's
mean,
when you
we-
need
I
to
think-
go.
I think we
No.
did pretty well that round though. Like the only thing that cost us as Union was a couple units got carried away with charging by themselves. But apart from that, like it was
And
a pretty good event.
so I managed to group all of the CSA up for the first time on that Cook's map behind that hill, ready to push the point. And I said, all right, we're going to push the point. And I was like, you all ready, blah, blah, blah. The leaders were like, yeah, okay. And then I was the first regiment over the hill, and we lined up on point with my, like, 17, 18 infantry guys. And the majority of the CSA ran past point and went around the right of the hill to hit you guys. And I was like, where are they going? So it was
Yeah.
just me on point. And I was just, I got so triggered. I was just, like, running around screaming French slurs.
Oh
Nice.
my god,
Thanks
that's
for
a.
admitting that.
I could go on a whole tangent about the French units in this game, but I won't.
I love. No,
what
like,
about the Russian ones?
Oh, I love the Russian ones, dude. They're
The Russians
funny as
just want to
shit.
kill people.
Well,
like.
when they shoot
what-
off spawn
they're
artillery.
but what
True
about
that.
the ones that like? Because what was the EU event this weekend, or was it Friday? I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the Maryland campaigns where it was the house is on point, and they were on CSA, but all they did, it was when Gareth was leading.
But
killer.
on Friday then.
One is right Friday's event. All they did was stand in the back left-hand corner of the map and did nothing, and that's it.
I
I
think
sit
So-
here, I
that's just
shoot.
to communicate. Like, I mean, obviously we're talking about Steam Chat or in game, but in a general sense of communication, especially on the AU side, it is a lot more difficult than it is on the NA side.
Correct.
Because we have such varied forms of language barriers, which, in a sense, a good infantry commander, because I mean, back when we had, who is now LFL, previously called Cobb's Legion, who were the French regiment in ANV, we kind of just grew to kind of understand how each other play, and that, I mean, there wasn't really a massive language barrier, whereas a lot of people thought we were going to have one when they first joined. But in a sense, it was just kind of like, I put them in a position where I know they're going to work and that they're not going to need to move around fast or maneuver a lot, because they don't do that, you know. They're pretty stagnant, where they just like to set up, fight a regiment, take a position and kind of hold it, whereas certain regiments, say like 6th New York, are just all over the field, you know. They can be on the right side, then they're on the left side, and then they're in the middle, and then they're somehow charging with 4 guys because the rest of them are wiped, but who cares?
Excuse
Right.
me, I don't call that.
So
No, we
and-
have experience like
Alabama.
that. Yeah, and that happens on Maryland campaign all the time. Why isn't 10th US backing us up? Why are they just standing there? Why are they just sitting in the middle? Why aren't they following the plan? You know, stuff like that. It gets frustrating, and you're just like, if you had the comms, you could, you know, call them out on it, and maybe they wouldn't care anyways, because they sort of like to do their own thing, you know. But you know, at least you hold them accountable. And
Can I ask a question actually on that? Because so you're saying about an event without the comms, but in an event with comms, I remember BLN probably about a month or two ago they covered Bloody Lane on Generals at War, and if I'm correct, Generals at War uses Steam Chat, right?
I don't know, you're the only one that does GOA here. Oh, Generals
Yeah,
at War. that you
Generals
use.
Generals
at
at War, yeah.
GOA.
I don't know.
Generals
doesn't-
use the
That's
Sorry,
a
sorry,
broad
GAW.
question.
Sorry, I said the wrong word there. Sorry, GAW meant to say. My
Bruh.
bad. Apologies. GAW meant to say. Yeah, so they use
they use comms.
So what
I
happens,
don't know,
like-
Gene, John, you guys do
Yep.
Generals at War. Do they use Steam Chat or in game?
Yeah, they use Steam Chat. We actually
Okay.
had a big problem with communication last event. I
Lol.
don't want to name any names, but I think
Just
they know
call
who
it.
they are. Yeah, okay.
Just
Who
Scoins
cares?
has
They're
already
not.
said the whole role,
They're
then
not.
go for it.
They're not even watching.
I love FAMAS, but LFL has always had an issue with coordinating in Steam Chat.
I mean, if the question I was going to ask was, I remember specifically watching the BLM video of the Sunday event of GAW when they did Bloody Lane, and I think it was
Yes.
the day when I think
Wilkes was general. Yeah.
I can't remember who was on Union. I want to say maybe it was Red actually, but I can't remember. Actually, no, sorry, no, Red was commentating. It wouldn't have been him. Maybe, I don't know. But I remember they started the event by saying within the first minute that the whole Union was meant to push left, and then it wasn't followed. So, like, what happens in an
Yes.
event like that when you have Steam Chat, they don't follow it, and it doesn't change? Like, how do you
People
go
get
about actually?
frustrated.
I mean, I guess,
honest,
yeah.
To be honest with you, what I would say is it falls upon at that point if someone's not listening to the person who's in charge, or like an event whose token it is,
Yeah.
then I think whoever runs that campaign, who runs the business, what needs to happen is they need to be held accountable by who's in charge of that campaign and given warnings. And if they're not going to hold up to the integrity of the event, then they just need to be banned from the event. Make it plain and simple.
I agree.
Yeah, that's fair.
Luckily, we haven't had that sort of thing in Grand Campaign. I mean, that's another thing about communication is like, you have the events where there is, say, in GAW, where there's, you know, a rule where there's like one man in charge, or one group, a person in charge, and everyone needs to kind of follow his sort of direction and command. And same with the Saturday, the campaign events, there's one regiment in charge because the outcome of that battle inevitably reflects their token, so rightfully so, they are in charge. It doesn't, in Maryland campaign though, it doesn't really work like that. Like, literally, whoever's battle it is, they make the initial plan on Strat Sketch, and then pretty much that's it. You never hear from them again, which is kind of like it's kind of one of the downsides of Maryland campaign, in a sense of it being a campaign. Like, at this point, it may as well just be a normal sort of skirmish event without comms, because the campaign bit is really just for us, like, as officers.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when we get into the in-game, you kind of forget whose token it is by the end of it.
Yeah, just got to
Right.
kill, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I rarely make coordination for that one. I leave that one up to Angel most of the time. And I never even know whose token it is. All I know is the plan, or at least the loose kind of idea of the plan, what the 5th is doing. Me and the young guys that I have leading, we know what we're supposed to do, but that's it. So
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's the thing is, like I said before, with those events, as long as each individual line has someone leading it who is competent and who knows when to attack and knows when to not to attack, knows when to reinforce, and kind of knows how to play the game, I'm gonna say it as frank as that, then it works perfectly fine. But in it, because when you don't have contact with the other units, you have to focus on yourself, and if you can't really do that, then yeah, it doesn't really work well for you, and it can really lead to events like Sunday. I keep bringing Sunday to you up, but it just won't leave my brain, man. It hurts.
I mean,
know,
yeah,
I
it
think
was a low point, but I mean, if you look at the 2 weeks before that as Union, we stomped it. Like, it went so
Which one
smoothly,
was
it was
that?
crazy. So we had obviously the Dunker and Cooks one, we won both, and then the week before that, I think was when we did the Conquest maps, and even then on the first half of the second map, we kind of fucked it, and we still brought it back. Like, the first round was piss easy because it was the what's it called? The fence lines one. Was it framing fence lines? Something like that.
Oh, don't even. Oh my god.
And we literally just controlled the whole field.
Well,
You know.
This is my thing, right? So after that event, in the debrief, that's when I had my first initial big rant. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember many rants from you. Yes, that's probably one among
Yeah,
them. But yeah.
that was my first initial rant, because there was zero coordination on our team. And then the week after that, the Cooks and Dunker one, there was again zero coordination on our team. And then I switched over to Union last week, and again there was zero coordination on our team. And
I think it's you, to be honest,
At this
Killer.
point, I feel like it is me. And honestly, I was talking to Cloud about this, right? I feel like there's a conspiracy to keep ANV and Hud's division apart, because when we're together, we just don't break apart. We're just like a powerhouse. But you little sneaky admins, I swear you're blocking us.
Hold on a second. You
You're
know when I
blocking the
stream.
true
You
love,
know when
man.
I coordinate, I stream. All right. Let's be
Yeah.
real. You
You're-
see me do
Well,
numbers.
I think we all find that. I think there's all groups that we as individuals really work well with, and we
Yeah.
really play well off of, and we communicate well with them. And then there's the idiots that don't, and you're like begging in coordination that you don't get put with those idiots, because you know what? You're just like,
right.
my God, please don't put me with that group. You know what
Yeah.
group
Ninja,
that I
Ninja
like,
does
and
that.
he's small, is Togray's group. Togray's group is small.
Oh,
But
buckle
he
up.
sticks with you, and he follows through, and you don't have to worry about that guy, because it's like, I'm only bringing 5 to 6 guys or whatever. Maybe I'll bring more, but I'm going to stick with you, and whatever you guys are doing, I'm going to reinforce it. That guy, fuck, I'd like him in any event, any group that's gonna do that. A group with that mentality, not the group that's gonna be like, no, just fuck off. I'm gonna do what I want.
We need to
No,
revert
keep
back.
them separate.
We need to revert back to my my previous BLN broadcast where I did the Friday NA on Roulette Lane, and watched Torgrave do counter battery from the White House, and I chewed him up on that broadcast, and I'm truly sorry, Torgrave. You're a great man. But generally, what was my point? What were you talking about again?
We were talking about the
Comms?
integrities of the groups, the comms, the people who listen, the smaller
Oh.
groups that actually do what they're, even when they join you and they actually follow through with it and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly something like, oh yeah, Ninja sometimes does this little sneaky thing in NA coordination. I'm gonna call him out for it. He'll put his numbers on whatever side he wants to play on. Even say if like Red's doing coordination, he's moving the numbers around, whatever. Ninja will just be like, nah, I don't want to be on this server, and just switch his numbers to a different one because he doesn't want to play with the guys he's on. And it's so funny because he just does it so like literally and blatantly. But
Well,
he's
now
just-
Red will watch for it, so that won't happen anymore.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people already know he does it. It's so funny. I catch him doing it all the time. He's like, hold on a minute, let me just see if I can fix these. Oh, that's
Let
perfect.
me rework the numbers. Oh, that's perfect. That's great. Yeah, no. Because you
Yeah,
know
he
what?
did
We're going to
that.
be the same way. Eventually it's going to be like, nah, Sussy doesn't want to play with these guys. We're just done. And when you know what? And it makes it a pain, but when you dictate numbers, you sort of dictate some of the events.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of communication, I've just realized I haven't like said anything, and we've been here for like 40 minutes.
Oh, it's good to have you, Hinkle. Yeah.
You've been inputting.
Yeah, thanks
with
for having
little-
me.
Little tiny one.
Laughs and just
Yeah.
like I was like, haha, I agree. But I guess my question for you guys is when we're talking about like coordinating and communication and working as a team in games, I guess for me, I feel like it would feel, well, it is more rewarding to have like successful coordination if it's just in-game comms than what it would be like if I used Steam Chat. Because if you pull it off in game and like it's successful, like if I'm attacking a point at this time and running my messengers around the map and stuff like that, and I pull it off and it's successful, I feel a lot more accomplished and rewarding than I would just be like charge at 30 in a Steam chat. So I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, you might feel accomplished at that point that you did that one action, but what happens also if you charge and all of a sudden you get wiped because you didn't get the support you needed?
Oh, I was talking more like when it does succeed. I mean, there's many times. I mean, there's
Well,
many
of course,
times
it always
when it
feels
doesn't.
great
When
it does
it
succeed, but
most
when
of the time
it
it's
doesn't-
unsuccessful. But
right,
more,
and then you get everyone looking at you like, oh my god, what the hell did that?
But I'm more
person just
talking
do?
about, would it feel more rewarding to you if? I mean, you tell me. Like, is it more rewarding if
Before
we
you answer,
coordinated a
that's fine.
successful push?
I want the win. So whatever
Yeah.
gets me the win and whatever works together to get the win. And if that means my pride having to sit back and shoot or having to go and do something else that they want me to do, as long as we've worked it out together.
I guess my question is, do you feel more accomplished if you're coordinated and communicated it in game, or do you feel a lot better, or do you just have
I
no
feel
thought
like-
about it if it's like in Steam chat, or
I got
just
you.
no correlation whatsoever?
But I feel accomplished by the numbers that we bring to the events who want to play with us because the win is what mattered to them, or having fun with the game and having that win. And I think it all goes together.
I like.
Okay.
If anyone watching in the chat, because I'm watching the chat, if any of you do have questions in like the last 5 minutes or whatever, we'll answer some of those. If you want to direct them towards someone, that's fine as well. But does anyone else have an answer to Henkel's question?
Yeah. Honestly, winning is fantastic, and Steam Chat does make it a lot easier. But a lot more work goes into coordinating out of Steam Chat. So when all those pieces do fall into place and it's a glorious final charge right at the end of the timer or whatever it may be, and it wasn't done through Steam Chat, you actually had to muster everybody up and say, hey, we're fucking going now. and you all push and you all win, yeah, it feels fantastic. But in the end, it's just it's the event you're in. If it's just a standard event, you're using Steam and you're kicking ass, and if it's not, you're in game trying to kick ass, and it's harder. But to answer your question, yes, there's a bit of a sense of pride and accomplishment when you do pull it off, and you didn't just say, "Hey, let's go." It was more of you had to gather everybody up.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the point I was trying to make. I mean, I would probably use Steam Chat for maybe like pubs, just because some officers you get in pubs are just absolute retards. So, can you say that? Am I allowed to say
It's too
that?
late now.
He said the hard
already
R
did.
word.
Well, shit.
What do
You
say?
can't retract it now. He said the hard R.
All right.
Nice.
Sorry, Eagle. Wow, you're not here. Who
Parker
gives a
says
fuck?
that to me all the
Demonetized.
time. He like runs up and he's like, "Yeah, killer, we're about to charge," and then drops an out on our hard R at the end of it. And I'm like,
Wait, hold on.
Oh man, wow. I mean, that could mean two very different things.
He said that with conviction, so I guess we need to do it now. But so I had one off who the fuck is Brandon Schaffer? But you know what? He's been going at it in chat. So he said, "How often are your non-chat coordinated your non-Steam chat coordinated?" I can't actually get words up.
That's why it feels so great for them, because they're very rare.
Yeah, he said, "How often are your non-Steam chat you know what I mean? How successful are the non-Steam chat events, in a sense?"
No, not the non. He's asking, how often are your non-Steam chat coordinated successfully? You know, how
I mean-
often do those charges that you didn't coordinate come out on top?
I think the way I'd answer that
Oh,
is
nice, alright, Wolf.
if you think about it like when you play, I don't know, any fucking video game RPG, right? You can put it on an easier difficulty and you can win every time, and that's great. But if you put it on a harder difficulty and beat the game, that's what's more successful and rewarding, right? And that's kind of what it's like for me. If you have no chats and you complete it or are successful, then it feels and is a lot more rewarding. Sure, you might not do it as often. That's the point. That's why the difficulty's harder, right? But if you did it the easy way each time and you blasted through the game each time on the easy difficulty, then I don't know. It's not
But
as-
is it really easy because your other competitor has Steam Chat? So it's a balance. It
as
doesn't
an
make
attacker,
it any
yes,
easier.
it's always easier.
Defenders can make maneuvers with Steam Chat as well.
I wouldn't say
Makes
so.
it no different.
As an attacker, I would think it's easier with non-Steam chat events than it is as a defender. I mean, because
yeah, absolutely.
when you both have Steam chats, defenders can reinforce each other a lot easier. So you aren't, see, if there's no Steam chat, okay, and you do what you did on Dunker Church and you full sent the far left side, you're gonna catch that regiment pretty much like reinforced on its own, and that could be a nice 20-30 man easy wipe. Whereas in a Steam chat, if they saw you coming, they could shift another 40-50 people over, and it's a lot more, you know, you might still take it, but you're going to lose a lot more taking it. Whereas,
But we wouldn't make that plan if we knew there was Steam chat. That's
Well,
the
I
thing.
know.
So
But
if I knew I had Steam chat in that Hatred event, for example, it would be a lot more intricate. Knowing that everybody could interact and move at the same time, we'd have had a fat dummy go along. So we'd have probably gone up the middle with a big force, wait for you to move there, and then run to the flank, knowing that everybody's interacting instantly.
yeah,
That's kind of the...
but it's
that's
kind of
how I
like
see it.
the thing of, on a defense, defending with Steam chat is a lot more easier than defending without Steam chat. Because without Steam chat, you have to rely on all of your allies to do their part and not be stupid, not throw tickets away.
I don't... Yeah, again,
also-
though, it's not doing it with or without. It's between attacking and defending, right? Because everything's easier with Steam chat. I said at the start. It's all just down to how you use it, which makes it easier or harder.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely easier to attack without Steam chat than it is to attack with Steam chat, in my opinion. Because with Steam chat, obviously the defenders also have Steam chat, whereas without Steam chat, you just have to kind of be a bit competent. Obviously, it's not going to work all of the time, but I'd say on average, it's probably easier to attack without Steam chat than it is to attack with Steam chat. Apart from those
That's
maps-
only because the defenders don't have it.
Yeah, that is literally the only reason why. But
Okay.
on some maps,
But
you have
as
to be
as for any
coordinated.
other time, though, having Steam chat means you can all go exactly at the same time.
Yeah, on those maps where you need to be coordinated and charged at a certain time, whatever, then yeah, of course, Steam Chat is gonna help it. But on certain maps, I think it's mainly map based. That's why I said map based at the start instead of event based, because rules are rules, no matter with Steam Chat or without them.
And you love rules.
I do. I do love rules.
You know what, there is one thing I'll give you, which I wanted to ask you guys that do Steam chat events more. How often do you? I'm thinking on a map like, let's say, Nicodemus Hill, for example. How often do you closely coordinate, say, the artillery on like a overwhelming advance, like one of the flanks on like Nicodemus Hill? Because you know that on a map like that, with the cab, the stone wall, and the kind of the layout of the map, that the CSA can, in theory, put up a good defense. But if you use that Steam chat, I guess, to your extreme advantage with like a coordinated artillery barrage and a massive push. Like, do you ever
Sure.
do like really close coordinations between like artillery and infantry like
Yeah,
that?
if Artie's in the chat, you just tell him, hey, will you point your guns over here? We're gonna leave it open so they cap. So get ready to pour it on when they come in. Happens all the time.
Yeah, but not from my experience, not as often as I would like it to.
Yeah,
It's always like there's one arty guy in there. He hit, oh, nice shot, and then that's it. We don't
was gonna say,
use them
like-
as much as
sorry.
we should, I feel like. And I feel like that's because there's a lot of people in the NA community who fucking hate artillery. So
But again, that's part of your group because a lot of guys will come in and you'll have your own individual artilleries, right? So with your group, and a lot of that is conveyed through your head guy. Is like when they're in the Steam chat, they will tell, "Hey, Artie, they want you to focus at this point. Can you start focusing at this point?"
that's fair. But as far as utilizing them, if they're like, if they were to be in the Steam, if the battery commander was to be in the Steam chat, and we could all coordinate it on a pivotal moment, at like a mass push on whatever side, where the battery rains down pretty much as soon as we get there, we don't really do that
Do you know
often.
what the funny thing is about communication is I feel like in a non-Steam Chat event, infantry guys who are fighting on left, right, and center of the map communicate way better than the artillery guys who are about 10 yards apart from each other. Which
Yeah,
is,
I agree with that.
I find very funny. I feel like artilleries, if you're an individual battery from different regiments, there is a serious lack of communication between one another. I've never really seen artilleries be like, all right, I'm gonna focus here, I'll focus here, blah blah blah, or you know what I mean. Instead of it just being, they have their cannon, they're gonna go do what they want to do, they're gonna go do what they want to do, shoot what they want to shoot. I feel like
That's because they're like socially awkward, and that's why they play
Yes,
art.
I think there's a
Artillery
good
They're like
Social
the
distance.
weirdest individuals like I've ever met.
artillery regiments hate one another, and it's so funny.
That is true.
They're
I've
competitive
noticed
with
that
each other.
complaint.
It's,
My
There's a
my
point in
artillery
the
guys
chat
are always
right there,
saying.
too. Like the person in the chat, Thumper, he's saying that he likes the idea of runners. Runners are a good thing in the non-Steam chats, but also it's just a cheap way of having Steam if that runner stays with that other group to communicate back and forth on the Discord.
Yeah, that is true. It's like, does the runner run over there and just stay there and communicate to you in Discord, or is that runner running over there talking, running back to you, talking to you in game, and then running back, whatever?
If you wanted
That's
to
down
do
to the
it
integrity of
properly,
the
it
unit,
would be
though,
the
surely,
It's
right?
second.
down to the integrity of the unit, which is why I also don't use runners, because I don't trust them.
Nobody is trusted.
I'll go out and tell them myself.
Hey, Killer,
What's
you
happening?
wasted almost a whole hour. It's 3:59.
Tell me about it, man. I didn't really. The time has flown by when you're having so much fun. That's what I say. But yeah, it is pretty much almost at the hour mark. So what we're gonna do is we'll go down the list again, top to bottom. And if you have any final words you want to say, they don't even have to be related to this podcast. If you have anything you want to say, feel free. And then we'll go ahead and drop it. So starting with Parker.
Developer starter, nice.
Yeah.
No, I thought this was a really good talk. I think especially for the European side of the game, for the reasons that we've gone over, such as languages. I think the events, the style of the events are very different in terms of what you can and can't do. So communication barriers and whatnot are a real different character, I think, in a lot of European events. So yeah, I hope everyone who listened has enjoyed it. And if you heard any of the events in this episode that you like the sound of, then do jump in. We'll encourage your unit to join them, and you might find a new event on either the European or the North American side that you really enjoy. So yeah, get out there and enjoy as many events as you can.
Fucking nerd.
Yeah, I mean, Henkel, is that all you wanted to say?
This is the last time I bring my son to work, I swear to God.
I am the supreme commander of the New York Volunteers.
I think there might be some objections to that, but please carry on.
They
Yeah.
just quit.
Henkel, you got anything you wanna add?
I got nothing.
He just wanted to chat shit to you, Parker. That was his final message, I guess.
Yep.
Nice.
That's
Star?
valid.
No, I had fun today. I will say that for the Steam Chat events, it's if you're playing in a Steam Chat event, it's a much more cut, dry, precise, coordinated affair. If you're playing a non-Steam Chat event, there's a lot more variables and a lot more unpredictability, and both of them can be very, very fun, and both of them have their setbacks, and it's just something you as a leader got to deal with, and it's just war of rights.
Well said. Well said. S coins.
Yeah, I'll just say www.59.org, and I like what Star said. Sometimes the maps, whatever it is, you're gonna have idiots with Steam Chat, and you're gonna have idiots without. So it's just the way it is, and you got to deal with it. But hopefully, at some point, someone who runs these campaigns holds these guys accountable.
I can't believe how much did Red pay you to do that?
Absolutely nothing.
Liar.
Go
John?
Sussy.
I agree with Scoins. Got to keep people accountable too. But that was a good talk. I enjoyed being here. And yeah, what Parker also said. There's a ton of events. Keep an eye out. That's it for me.
Yeah, and this is me, Asgardian Eagle, signing off. I hope
That's
you'll
cap.
I need to work on my eagle accent.
Nice accent.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
Yeah, I'm almost at it, man. But yeah, thank you for the guys watching in chat. We had a nice number today, and actually, you know what? The EU podcasts have actually got quite a lot of views on this channel. So look, we're keeping it alive. We're keeping it running. ANV knows. Thank you all for listening. Yeah, great. God save the king.